I need you to listen carefully because what I'm about to say may sound harmless at first, but it cost me years of my life before I understood the truth. There are gifts you should never accept, not because they look evil, not because they feel dangerous, but because they are designed to enter your life quietly. And once they do, they open doors you never agreed to open. I'm not speaking from theory. I'm not repeating rumors. I live this. I was once deeply involved in witchcraft. I knew how spiritual contracts were made without words. I knew how objects could be prayed over, spoken into, dedicated, and sent into someone's home as a smiling gift. And I knew exactly what those gifts were meant to do. Most people think curses come through rituals, spells, or obvious dark practices. But the most effective curses don't arrive like that. They arrive wrapped in kindness. They arrive with a smile. They arrive as I thought of you. That's why I'm warning you now. There are 5 types of gifts witches use more than any others. They don't look cursed. They don't feel dangerous. In fact, some of them are beautiful, but they carry spiritual assignments. And once you accept them, you're not just receiving an object, you're receiving permission. Before I tell you the first one, you need to understand something important. In the spiritual realm, gifts are never neutral. A gift creates agreement, it establishes connection, it forms a spiritual link between the giver and the receiver. That's why in witchcraft, gifts are powerful tools. They bypass resistance, they disarm suspicion, they enter homes legally. I remember the first time I was taught this. I was still young in the occult, eager to learn, hungry for power. An older practitioner looked at me and said, "Never waste energy on someone who won't open their door. Send the door to them." I didn't understand at first. Then she handed me an object and told me to bless it, not with good intentions, but with purpose, with words spoken in secret, with spirits assigned to it. And she said, "No, let them invite it in." That sentence still chills me because that's how it works. Now listen to me very carefully. The first gift you should never accept is clothing. Clothes are one of the most dangerous objects to receive when they come from the wrong source. Why? Because clothing sits on your body, it absorbs your energy, it touches your skin, it covers you. Spiritually, clothes represent identity, authority, and covering. In witchcraft, clothing is often used to influence how a person is perceived, how they feel about themselves, and even how others respond to them. I personally participated in rituals where clothes were prayed over to carry confusion, insecurity, heaviness, lust, or delay, not because the fabric itself was evil, but because words were spoken into it, spirits were attached to it, intentions were sealed into it. And once that person wore it, they didn't need to believe in witchcraft for it to work. That's the part most people don't understand. Spiritual laws do not require your belief, they require access. I remember gifting someone a scarf once. It was beautiful, soft, elegant. She loved it. She wore it constantly, and over time, I watched her confidence drain. Her peace disappeared. She began doubting herself in ways she never had before. She thought it was stress. It wasn't. That scarf had been dedicated to strip clarity and stir inner chaos. I Wish I could say that was the last time I ever did something like that, but it wasn't. And that's why I'm speaking now. If someone gives you clothing and you feel a sudden heaviness, discomfort, or resistance in your spirit, don't ignore it. That uneasiness is not imagination, it is discernment. Especially be cautious with second-hand clothing, inherited garments, or clothes given after envy, conflict, or sudden reconciliation. Because in witchcraft, reconciliation, gifts are often traps. Now, let me tell you about the second gift you should never accept: jewelry. Jewelry is small, personal, and powerful. Rings, bracelets, necklaces. These items are often used to bind, monitor, or spiritually mark a person. In witchcraft, circles represent covenants. That's why rings are significant. Necklaces rest near the heart and throat, places connected to emotion and voice. Bracelets sit on the hands, symbols of action and productivity. I was taught how to dedicate jewelry to delay marriages, drain finances, cause repeated relationship failure, or even create unexplained sickness. And again, the receiver didn't need to know. One woman I knew received a necklace from a close friend who secretly practiced witchcraft. She wore it every day. Over time, her relationships kept collapsing. No matter how good things started, they always ended suddenly and painfully. Years later, when that necklace was removed and destroyed, the pattern broke. That was not coincidence. Jewelry carries presence. It stays with you. It travels with you. That's why witches love using it. Now listen, not every gift is cursed. I'm not telling you to live in fear. I'm telling you to live aware. There's a difference. The third gift is where things get even more subtle. Decorative items for the home, statues, figurines, wall hangings, art pieces, just something cute for your house. In witchcraft, homes are targeted spaces. What you place in your home matters spiritually. Objects act like altars, whether you intend them to or not. Certain symbols invite certain spirits. I remember placing a decorative object in someone's home, something artistic, abstract, harmless looking, but it had been used in ritual to invite division and unrest. Within months, that home became chaotic. Constant arguments, restlessness, sleep problems, financial pressure. They blamed life. The object stayed and the door remained open. I need you to understand this. Witches rarely attack directly. They hide spiritual assignments in ordinary things and let time do the rest. This is why I'm breaking this into parts, because this is not light information and I don't want you to rush through it. In the next part, I'm going to reveal the remaining gifts, including one that almost everyone accepts without question. And I'm going to explain how to spiritually cleanse your space if you've already received something like this. But for now, I want you to pause. Think about what you've accepted. Think about what's in your home. Think about what changed after certain gifts entered your life. Because sometimes the problem didn't start with an attack, it started with a present. Before I go any further, I need you to understand something deeply. When I walked away from witchcraft, it wasn't because I suddenly became afraid. It was because I finally saw the damage clearly. I saw how many lives were quietly entangled, not by obvious rituals, but by simple agreements made through everyday objects. And the hardest part, most people never connect the dots. They pray, they fast, they seek answers, but the door remains open because the object remains. That's why I'm continuing this warning. The fourth gift you should never accept is food or drink that has been prepared with unknown spiritual intent. This one is extremely sensitive, so listen carefully. In witchcraft, ingestion is one of the strongest forms of spiritual access. When something enters your body, it bypasses external resistance. That's why witches often work through meals, drinks, oils, powders, or special treats. I personally witnessed food being prayed over, not with visible rituals, but with whispered words, intentions spoken quietly while cooking, baking, or serving. And no, it didn't look dark, it looked loving. Homemade meals, celebration dishes, special recipes, peace offerings after conflict. I remember a woman who constantly struggled with unexplained exhaustion. Doctors found nothing. Vitamins didn't help. Rest didn't help. She felt drained no matter what she did. Later, it was revealed that someone close to her regularly brought her foe, always insisting she eat it always, offended if she refused. When that stopped, the heaviness lifted. Witchcraft works best when it hides behind hospitality. Now, hear me clearly. I am not saying every meal someone offers you is dangerous. Fear is not wisdom, discernment is. If someone becomes aggressive, offended, or manipulative about you consuming what they give you, pay attention. In the occult, offense is often used to force compliance. The fifth gift is the most overlooked and in many ways the most dangerous. Personal items meant for children, toys, baby clothes, blankets, stuffed animals. Children are highly sensitive spiritually. Their defenses are not fully formed. That's why witches often target them indirectly, not to harm physically, but to influence destiny, behavior, identity, and future paths. I knew practitioners who specifically worked through baby items. They would dedicate toys to bring confusion, rebellion, fear, or persistent illness. And parents never suspected a thing. The toy looked innocent, the gift looked generous, the intention was hidden. I remember one situation clearly. A child began having night terrors shortly after receiving a stuffed animal from a family friend, screaming at night, refusing to sleep alone, sudden fear that made no sense. When that item was removed, the nightmare stopped. That is not coincidence. In witchcraft, timing matters. Gifts given during pregnancy, birth, birthdays, or emotional vulnerability carry extra weight because spiritually those moments are open windows. Now, I want to talk to you not as someone warning you, but as someone who understands the guilt that comes with realizing you've accepted something you shouldn't have. If you're listening to this and thinking, I already have these things, do not panic. Fear feeds darkness. Authority removes it. The power does not lie in the object itself. The power lies in agreement, and agreements can be broken, but you must be willing to let go. One of the hardest lessons I learned after leaving witchcraft was this: some blessings cannot enter your life until certain items leave. People ask, why am I stuck? Why does everything feel blocked? Why do the same cycles keep repeating? Sometimes it's not because you're under attack. It's because something is still giving access. In witchcraft, we used to say, if the Object remains, the assignment remains. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to empower you because once you remove the object, the connection collapses. Now, let me tell you something deeply personal. When I first walked away from the occult, I didn't immediately experience peace. I experienced resistance, nightmares, confusion, emotional turmoil. Why? Because my home was still full of items connected to my old life: books, jewelry, decor, clothing. I had left the practice, but the practice hadn't left my space. It wasn't until I began removing those items intentionally, prayerfully, decisively that things shifted. Peace came, clarity returned, my mind felt clean. That's when I understood what I'm telling you now. Your environment speaks before you do. Your home teaches your spirits how to rest or how to remain alert, and objects carry memory. This is why witches use them. I want you to do something after this video. Walk through your home slowly. Don't rue, don't overthink. Just observe, notice what you feel near certain items. Notice if there's something you've always felt uneasy about but never questioned. Notice what entered your life right before things changed. Your spirit remembers even if your mind forgot. In the final part, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do if you've identified one of these items. Not rituals, not fear-based actions, not superstition, authority. I'm going to explain how to close doors without opening new ones, how to cleanse your space safely, and how to prevent this from happening again without living suspicious of everyone around you. Because freedom is not paranoia, freedom is clarity. Now, I want you to stay with me because this is the part most people never hear. This is where fear ends and authority begins. If you've been listening carefully, you might already feel something shifting inside you. Not panic, not paranoia, but recognition. That quiet moment where something clicks and you realize that explains a lot. And that's not accidental, because truth doesn't come to scare you, it comes to set you free. Let me say this clearly before I go any further. Objects do not have power over you, access does. And access can be revoked. When I first left witchcraft, I was afraid of doing the wrong thing. I was afraid that if I touched certain items, something bad would happen. That fear was leftover conditioning. Witchcraft thrives on intimidation. It wants you to believe the power is external. It isn't. The moment you understand that authority comes from your alignment, not from rituals, not from objects, everything changes. So, what do you do if you've identified one of these gifts? First, you stop minimizing it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is saying it's probably nothing. When their spirit has been uneasy for years, that hesitation doesn't make you wise, it keeps you stuck. If something carries disturbance, confusion, heaviness, or emotional resistance, you don't need proof. Discernment is enough. Second, you separate emotionally from the object. This is important. Witchcraft often works through sentimental attachment. It was a gift. It was expensive. I don't want to offend anyone. It reminds me of a memory. That emotional bond is part of the agreement. Letting go is not dishonor, it is self respect. I had items that represented years of my life, items that once made me feel powerful, items that felt like part of my identity, and I had to release them, not angrily, not dramatically, but decisively. You cannot step into freedom while holding on to anchors. Third, you remove the item completely, not storage, not relocation, not gifting it to someone else. Removal. In witchcraft, passing an object along simply transfers the assignment. That's why disposal matters. For me, removal meant destroying certain items, discarding others, and cleansing my space intentionally afterward, not with fear, with authority. And here's something people misunderstand: cleansing is not about fighting spirits, it's about closing doors. You don't argue with darkness, you turn on the light. When I cleared my space, I didn't shout, I didn't panic, I spoke with clarity. I declared that any agreement made without my consent was broken, that anything not aligned with peace had no permission to remain, and things shifted immediately. The atmosphere changed, my thoughts settled, sleep returned. That's how you know. Now, let me address something important. Some of you are thinking, but what if the person didn't mean harm? Intent matters, but access matters more. Even well, meaning people can pass along objects carrying spiritual residue. In witchcraft, objects absorb energy through use, environment, and history. This isn't about accusing people, it's about guarding your space. Your home is not a museum of obligation, it is a sanctuary, and you are allowed to protect it. Another thing I need to say, especially to those who are deeply spiritual, prayer alone does not always remove access if the object remains. Prayer is powerful, but agreement is practical. You cannot ask for rain while holding an umbrella over your head and expect to get wet. Faith and action work together. That's why some prayers feel unanswered, because the door is still open. When I finally understood this, I stopped begging for freedom and started enforcing it. And enforcement doesn't require volume, it requires clarity. Now, let me talk to you about prevention, because awareness without wisdom becomes fear. You do not need to interrogate every gift. You do not need to suspect everyone. You do not need to isolate yourself. What you need is discernment and boundaries before accepting personal items, especially clothing, jewelry, or items for your home or children. Pause internally, not outwardly, not awkwardly, internally. If there is peace, receive with gratitude. If there is resistance, decline with grace. You do not owe anyone access to your life. Boundaries are not rude, they are protective. I used to know witches who said if they hesitate, it's harder to attach. Hesitation disrupts access. That's why slowing down matters. Now, I want to leave you with this truth because it ties everything together. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you if he can distract you. He doesn't need to attack you if he can enter quietly, and he doesn't need permission loudly if he can get it subtly. That's why gifts are used. But here's the good news. Once you become aware, the strategy fails. You are no longer an open door. You are no longer an easy entry. You are no longer unaware. And awareness changes everything. If you've been feeling stuck, heavy, delayed, or blocked, this might not be the only reason, but it could be one of them. And removing one door can change the entire atmosphere of your life. I didn't regain my peace overnight, but I regained my authority immediately, and peace followed. So take your time. Walk through your space. Listen to your Spirit, remove what no longer belongs, not with fear, with confidence, because you are not powerless. And nothing hidden can remain once it is exposed. This is where the story closes and where freedom begins and clarity is